And welcome to another. Why do we always start and we're laughing? It's almost like we get the camera giggles as soon as we begin, welcome to another episode of Nightmare Road. I am one of your hosts, Decon, here with a very, very mystical and very
Pale.
mysterious,
You
and,
called me pale, I think, earlier.
and with the
SOS.
with the very, very pale SOS reaching out to you, stealing your tan.
I was telling Decon that this is my tan.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in
So,
that case, oh wow, you tan pretty good. Anyways, today
yeah.
we got a pretty exciting episode. At least it's exciting to me because the topic is just so, you know, interesting. And I think that when I look at this, how do I word it? Because when you look at we're gonna talk about Ouija boards, fellas and fellerettes. Um, so when we look at Ouija boards, people when they dwell into the history of Ouija boards, they go at, well, you see, in 1890, the something brothers, and it's like, try again, sir.
Way back. They go way, way back.
Yes, way, way, way back. So
Way back.
So and I don't have much experience. All I've done is just like research, the Ouija board, and then all kinds of different what would you call them? Like mechanisms to I don't
Ooh, well, so the technical sense would be dowsing, right?
yeah.
They're all methods to communicate that use a physical means usually is dowsing. Whether you're using a pendulum or a board or rods, it's dowsing.
Yeah. And it's just something out there communicating through you, I guess, and communicating through a tool. Like
Mhm.
historically,
Yeah.
I believe the very first people say that the Chinese were the first ones to use, um, but I
Hmm.
I have found that, well, they were the first ones to actually use a board of some kind. They would use a board.
They actually,
Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go
So they
ahead.
they use a board, and there was like different symbols, and then they would communicate by putting their hand on the symbol, and then they would kind of like move around, and that's the way that it would communicate. Eventually, you start putting like pieces of like charcoal or something, and it would write symbols. But before that, there was many, many years before. I think 1,000 years before that, you get the Egyptians, and even before the Egyptians, you get people that would write with either a stone or something on something flat, and they would just turn their hands around, and as they're asking questions and then they would begin to write things down, and then people would come and look like, oh, look at that, and that's what we call automatic writing. Um,
Yes. So also the Chinese used a sieve. They would fill it full of sand, and it would
yeah,
be on a like a pendulum, and
yep,
as it moved around, it would draw their symbols, their
yep,
letters. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
And there's different methods for doing it. And honestly, if you get a long enough rope and a big enough sieve, just the motion of the planet causes the swing.
yeah,
You see these at different uh I know the Steinhardt Museum in San Francisco has one that's enormous, and it draws the same pattern every single day. It's just
yeah,
from the motion of the earth.
yep,
But yeah, but apparently, according to what I've read on this, that it would draw the Chinese symbols, like whatever their letters are and their numbers. So,
yeah. And it's crazy because use that word so much, and every single time I re-listen to that, I'm like, why do you say that? But it's interesting. How about that? It's interesting. Ooh. Because you do have something on a chain or on a rope, and it's a pendulum, and it's swinging around. And from what I've seen, because they've replicated these things and they've asked it questions and these seances, and then the thing's just going around by itself. No, by the way, no one's touching it. Just so you know, no one's touching it, and you're able to draw some. Oh, let's see if I still remember my Chinese here, my Mandarin. So this is this is one of the, I don't know if you could see that, but this is one of the symbols for water. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. The symbol for spirit is this here. Uh, this one right there. If you can kind of see it. Oh, jeez.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, and then you have what a nerd. Sorry, guys. You have the
You know,
symbol.
I'm always fascinated by what you know. It's like we get in these conversations and it's like, oh my God. Yeah.
So, geez, let me see if I remember. This one goes here. This one goes there. 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 Okay, and then we get rain. Okay, so if you look at those are very distinct characters that they're drawing. They're actually pretty advanced, as you're going. So it's pretty hard for something to randomly draw those figures.
Oh yeah.
And even at the way that sometimes when you watch this pendulum, it would almost like it stopped mid swing and then go up. And it was because it has to draw those symbols in Chinese calligraphy. So this is the way that they used everything from divination to speaking to ancestors for wisdom to even an attempt of telling the future. You know,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna ask you because you're I would consider there's no real expert in this field, but there's people with more experience. There's a more experience. So I'm gonna ask you, what is your history with automatic writing?
Yeah. So I've done a lot of it. I find and so I don't know if like spirits coming through me when I'm doing it or if I'm answering my own internal questions. If I'm really struggling with something, I will do automatic writing to try to come up with an answer, a solution, a path forward, whatever that might be. So that could be me. Like I already know the answer, so it's telling me, right? Because if I answer it, it'll come up with some information for me. But my dad used it a lot. And what I find fascinating, my dad, who didn't believe in any of this stuff for a long time, at least he said he didn't. One day, so where we grew up was very close, it was closer to Lake Tahoe than pretty much anywhere else. If I said where it was, nobody would know. So I just say
Yeah.
Lake Tahoe, right? Yeah. So we were up in the Sierra Nevadas. That's where I grew up. And we had a chunk of property up there. And my dad had cleared enough trees that we had a really good view of Mount Lassen. So it was really pretty area. And, he didn't really like to clear the trees, but it was densely forested.
Yeah.
So you do it for fire protection and you do it to, log in some of the trees, makes you some pretty good money. So it was kind of all around. But anyway, he wanted to build a little shed down there, like a little, it wasn't even a shed. It was a really cute little structure, a little building, because he kept finding all these artifacts on the property. And we were not near water. It was on a slope.
Yeah.
So there was no stream
Yeah.
through this thing. But you're finding all of this stuff, like ancient horseshoes, and they were more like a donkey shaped hoof,
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
horse hoof,
Yeah.
and things like that, right? So he's finding all this stuff, and he built this shed, and he had this little shelf in there, and he kept putting all this stuff in there. And one day he was also an artist, so he was always drawing and sketching and doing all of this stuff, and he was kind of dozing. He always had his little bucket of beer, and he's sitting in the sun, and he said he kind of dozed off,
That's a
and
good
when he
life.
woke up, when he woke up, he had written the name, and it said miner, like gold miner.
Yeah.
And it had a name and it had dates. And so he didn't know what to do with this information. He thought it was really interesting. So one of his friends owned the gold assay office that we still had in town, and because people are still finding a lot of gold there, and they take it in the assay office and get it weighed and cash it in and all this stuff. And so the guy started doing some research and came to find out that that person had a patent, a gold patent claim on that land, like in the 1800s.
Whoa.
So there's no way that doesn't go through like the legal deeds.
Yeah.
That, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, you can have a gold claim on public land, and that's you'd have to go to like BLM or the Forest Service or wherever to
Yeah.
find out that information. But on private land, it's not something that shows up in your deed. So I don't know how he came up with that information.
So, man, see, jeez, damn. I don't know what to say to that. That is insane. So
It
that
is.
that is the way that's a really good example of the way that things like automatic writing would start. What's interesting is that for those people that are familiar with, we had this conversation yesterday or today, about druids and how druids used all these type of mechanisms. They use things called runes. To me, it's all Ouija. I mean, Ouija's not even a real Egyptian word. They say it's an Egyptian word for luck, but it's not. It's not.
I still look at the runes almost every day.
Yeah. So yes.
Those are
So
my stones.
okay, so you have these druids, and these druids, that's the way that they would begin their day. They would begin their day by casting these runes, and then the runes would kind of tell you. Then there was different ways of actually utilizing the runes. The way that you can do it, one of the ways was that you would take the runes and you would shake them up, and then you would drop them, and and depending how they land, that's how you would plan out your day. That's how you would plan out, how you're going to do things. Another way of doing it is you were to take them and you were to dump them, and then you take all the ones that were facing up and you remove them. The ones that were facing down, you flip them over, and then that's how you get also another method of reading runes. So here you have man. See, now I'm getting everywhere here. So here you have a famous druid. His name was uh Levicius. Levicius was a very famous, very powerful druid. Um, to the point where the other druids surrounding him said, "This guy has too much power. We have to get him out of here." He's hogging for people that don't know, mages too, but druids drew their energy a lot. Well, the majority of them drew their energy through something called nature magic. Um, so when people say things like, "Well, they're doing all these kinds of like demonic, all these kind of like," no, these are elements that are drawn from the earth, and it's almost as if the earth. This is the belief. I'm not saying this is what I believe, but this is what was going on. So the nature would kind of like imbue them with this energy, and that's where they got their power from. So certain region had certain druids, and these druids basically were assigned to certain areas. So they believed that if somebody was getting a little bit too powerful, there was uh, a system of check and balances for druids. You can't have somebody hogging up all the energy because that person becomes drunk with power or begins to abuse certain things. So this guy, you have to go. So he left, right? So he gets picked up. Levitius gets picked up by this Roman soldier who, but his name was Gaius Manliness, of all things. Yeah. So that was his name, Manliness. So gets picked up by this guy, and the Romans are like, execute him. This guy, he's over here. He's superstitious. He's superstitious. Execute him. We have no need for him because this guy, he claims he's able to tell you the future, and we already have somebody that can read us the future. This guy observes birds, and this guy can see the formation of the birds and what the future like. So then this guy says, I can tell you the future. That's what he said. And they're like, all right, whatever. Well, what's gonna happen? So then he gets his runes and he gets everything ready, and then this guy immediately freezes up. They say that his eye, and these are writings from Irenaeus. Irenaeus is a famous Roman historian. It says that this guy locks up, his eyes turn pitch black, and he begins to flip these runes. Right? He's flipping these runes, and then he asks for a rod, thin rod, and he's beginning to draw in the Roman language. And the Romans at that time were they used a lot of Celtic, a lot of what's called um, paint was the language that they utilized. So he starts drawing these symbols, and this guy comes over and he translates. He says, in this symbol there is a pig, and this pig is about to be devoured by a wolf. And then they're like, all right, whatever that means. Still, load him onto the wagon. We're gonna take him into the city, and we're gonna execute this guy anyway. So they're riding around a trail. Within a couple of days, this barbarian tribe comes in. This barbarian tribe under a king whose name was Artaegon, was a king of the Germanic tribes, these Germans. And the Romans back then, they weren't scared of the Celts, but they were always like, these people have no fear. They're gonna come at you, and we're gonna use our formations, but they're not gonna back down. So they saw these Germans, and they're like, whatever these Celts are, these Germanic tribes are more than that. These Germanic tribes are bigger. These guys are more savage. And here comes this barbarian king with a wolf's head on there, and he begins to wage war on these Romans, and these Romans run because there's so many of them. And these guys begin to destroy these Celtic cities who worshipped a god of fertility and the god of the winter that was basically the shape of a boar. So starts annihilating these cities. And this guy comes in, and he's got these wolf teeth hanging from his neck. He's got this hat, skinned hat made out of a wolf's head, and he begins to wage war against these Romans. And these Romans are like, we need to make peace with these people now. These guys are going to devour our nations. So they kept this guy, and that was one of the very first um, documented historical moments of somebody using automatic writing and utilizing runes. So this guy used runes, and then he used automatic writing. You know, he put a stick on the dirt or the sand and he's writing, and then this is where he foretold. So after that, this guy was kept as this is their druid. Whenever, even with Caesar, sorry, now I'm going into the historical thing. We're going to get back to the paranormal, guys, I promise. Even when Caesar started mounting his campaign, he would say, get me Levitius, bring him over here. You know, and he would come over here. He says, okay, this is my plan. We're going to go over here. There's these people here. Are they friendly? Are they not? You got to let me know. And then this guy comes and says, you are dwelling in superstition. And then Caesar famously says, one man's magic is the other man's ignorance, and calls it superstition. So that was the very famous quote by Julius Caesar, you know, as he's campaigning. So he was sold on his druid and his automatic writing and his runes. So now I'm going to ask you the question. Have you ever utilized runes to foretell something? Or if you feel like something is not right, do you ever feel like you need to consult automatic writing or consult runes?
I use the runes more than I use anything. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
okay, so man, now my head is spinning. So not in a bad way, by the way. I'm just trying to. So how do you utilize them? Like you bring them out. So how is it that you?
So in the morning, you know, I cup of coffee, consult the runes. I try to figure out how, kind of like how's my day going to go? Or it might, if I'm, you know, we all wake up in the morning and we're thinking about things that we got to do or that. Sometimes it'll give me the direction I need to go in. I probably already know the direction, but if I'm struggling, it'll help. But I've used it quite often. Like, honestly, do I buy this property or not? Because I was at a crossroads at that time. And you know, so I'm it. I don't have anybody left in my family. There's no one but me. I don't have anybody to consult for these huge decisions in life. So I I call on my ancestors to help me out, and I think they guide the stones. That's my belief. It could be bunkus to somebody else, but it hasn't steered me wrong yet. I'm
Yeah,
doing okay.
yeah, and what you just said, I mean, some people could ridicule, the runes or ridicule like any method of guidance, but I
Right?
I tell you this, Julius Caesar launched military campaigns based on what this guy said. And look at the Roman Empire. I mean,
Right.
look how big it was. And he did not make a military move without. He even got huge criticism. There's a great translation of called Caesar, and it's called the Allfather translation. There was several historians which criticized Julius Caesar exactly for that. They're saying, he's over here consulting with druids, he's consulting with this, he's consulting with that, but they don't look at the big piece, like how did it end? What happened to the empire that he was helping expand? You know,
Well, not only that, but the question of how was the druid getting his information? It's not the stone. It's the
Yeah,
ancestors he's calling on to turn the stone, help him turn the stone.
and
That's ultimately keeping him alive,
yeah,
right? Giving
yes.
Julius Caesar the right information was keeping him
What
alive.
was keeping
So
them
those
alive?
ancestors, huh?
And exactly. I mean, the information was keeping them alive, but also now we can segue into what's important here with this main topic is where is this information coming from?
So Ouija boards, a lot of people are like, ooh, stay away from them. But think about automatic writing.
Don't say The Exorcist.
Um, uh, okay, most of us have had moments where we know who's on the phone before we pick up the phone or scroll and pick up the phone anymore, right? So most of us have had those like premonition or precognitive events in our lives. That information is coming from somewhere. And I think that of the Ouija board, when we're making contact, a lot of times it's, I tell people who are going to use this stuff because people are going to use it. Only contact people you know.
Yeah.
Um, talk to your dead Uncle Fred, your
Or
grandma, you know what I'm saying?
yes.
Don't just go, oh, let's talk to me because you don't know who's walking through the door.
Yeah, we don't do that with strangers. We don't open the door for whoever's
No,
walking by and like, hey, come in here,
no.
have a chat. You know.
So don't do it with the dead. Just be, if you're going to use it and people are going to use it because people are curious and they're going to use it, talk to people you know. Grandma, your
And
uncle.
and we can venture into the history of how the Ouija board came to be. I mean, there's several different stories, but the story that I found to be the most consistent, or to me the most believable, was that here was a couple of guys that had an idea for they called it a game, and they consulted a woman who was, I think she might have been a cousin of theirs, but this was somebody that was known as a medium. They contacted her, they brought her in, and then they said, if we wanted to contact somebody, if we wanted to make a game, like what would be the best way to do it? So they claimed that she sat there and she meditated, and yeah, there you go. And she sat there and she meditated, and then she wrote on a piece of paper the alphabet. And she basically said, whatever is over there is going to utilize something to basically spell out words for you. And they're like, well, all right, this is not going to work. And then they said that they built the first model, and it looks similar to what it is now, but just slightly with a little bit of differences. And then they're sitting there and they're touching this planchette. Well, it's not even a planchette. What it was a let me see if I can. It was kind of something like this, and with a pencil. And you set it down, and it's going around, and they're drawing on this thing, and they're asking questions like being silly, being ridiculous, and this thing's sitting there and it's circulating, and they're like, oh, am I gonna live, to be wealthy? And this thing circulated and like circled the no, and then and all kinds of different stuff. So they thought it was silly. So they're like, we're sold, but we can't have kids draw on all the boards. So how are we gonna do it? They designed a planchette, a form of planchette. So, anyways, so it becomes a success, a market success. Oh, she also said Ouija, what's going to be the. No, she said Ouija was the name of it. Ouija is an actual word. They said that's going to be too hard to spell, it's going to be too hard to say, so we're going to call it Ouija. So,
Like a Ouija isn't.
yeah, Ouija isn't. So then they ended up. So they ended up going with that. It's the Ouija board, whatever. So then they finally find success. They built a factory, and the guy who asked the question, am I going to be successful, and it said no, so this guy's ready, he's building his factory, he goes to the roof of this building, and he's watching these people build this factory, leans on a rail, the rail falls forward, and then he plummets to his death.
My God.
I mean, and so technically it was right, it said you're not, because he died before they were
It
able
wasn't.
to. Yep, before he was able to
Man,
reap any rewards from it. So
really sucks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he asked the right question. I guess I don't know.
Well,
Anyways, so what I'm asking is, so when people are looking at this, and I have a couple of stories, by the way, from childhood stories. I know you love those, but so when somebody is utilizing a tool like this, is the tool itself dangerous?
tool isn't. It's how you use it.
So if
Like like and so I digress a little bit, right? So I have weapons, I have different guns. They're very dangerous in the wrong hands, or if I point it at somebody and pull the trigger, it's very dangerous. But laying on my
yeah,
kitchen counter, it's not. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I
That
know
I mean,
exactly.
you can. These tools are tools. They are tools to communicate, but it's how you communicate and what you ask and who you invite in. That's where the danger comes in. We have to go to a lot of homes where people have screwed around with these things,
That's what I was going to
and
ask you.
then everything starts going nuts. And what did you do? That's what did you do? And
Yeah.
then 30 minutes into the conversation, they go, yeah, okay, so we played with the Ouija board. How many times? Who did you talk to? If they don't know, that gets real concerning.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, and these and I hear these stories, and like I told you in the past, how skeptical. But
Right.
I hear these stories about there's a haunting in the house, and it started off with the Ouija board, and somebody came in, and somebody's like, okay, take this Ouija board, and you have to bury it, and blah blah blah, and all these things. And then I'm like, what is that gonna do? Like the door is open, you open the door, like the burglar is already in the house. You can't unshut that. Like, what do you? It'll be the equivalent of somebody kicking in your door. I'm going with my own analogy here. Somebody kicks in your door and it's a home invasion, and then it's like I gotta rip this door off the hinges because it failed. And I gotta
Yeah,
take
you got to burn the
it.
door.
Yeah, like what are
Yeah.
you doing?
I I don't subscribe to that. There are people that I work with in this field who believe that. I don't believe the board themselves are the problem. You've invited. Now we have to deal with what you invited. We have to figure out who it is and how to get rid of it. The board itself, throw away the board. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It's
it's already in
it
there.
doesn't matter. Yeah, yeah. So now we have to go in behind that and then try to figure out how to help.
Yeah, because
And not everybody that you talk to is human.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Because when I watch footage of people playing with this board, people are like, "We're here to contact whatever is on the other side," and I'm like, "Ooh, that is a dangerous thing to do." You know,
It is a dangerous thing to do. Think about how many just in human terms, think about how many thousands of years it took to get to you. So how many dead people are there in your lineage just to make you? You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Well, I'm
So that's a lot of
Salvadorian, so that's
people
a
out
lot.
there. Yeah, right? So that's a lot of people back there behind you. Standing
Yeah,
behind you all the time. Your ancestors are back there all the time, and they're helping to guide us and shape us and hopefully help us make decisions. But that doesn't mean that, you know, whoever you invited into the door is a human. Or think about dead now. So Charles Manson. Think of what if he walked through the door? I mean, I'm just saying, there's
yeah,
people are in death as they are in life, and not people. Not everybody's a good person.
yeah, and that's an excellent point. I mean, it'd be the equivalent of you filling up an arena with 100 people, and then you just randomly pick somebody, and they're like, "All right, come on!" Like you don't know these people, you don't know what they're there for. You can,
Come on home.
well, yeah, exactly. You got well,
Oh,
some people do that at a bar.
well, yeah,
So
yeah.
anyways, jeez. So what I say? What? Anyways, the point is, you do get like all these people that create chaos in their lives by utilizing something they have no knowledge about. So is is the Ouija board itself the danger? But again, I mean, you don't need the Ouija board to contact things. I mean, so
No, but it helps, right? Because people who don't have any training, it's an easy thing for them to go out and buy for 20 bucks at Walmart and then sit down, and it helps because they're focusing their intent and their energy on that. Where today, we can't get away from these, right? So it helps because you're clearing all distractions. You're focusing your energy and your intent on making contact with something because you're not being specific. Most people aren't. That's why I tell the kids, because we have kids in our cases, it's like only contact your grandmother or people within your family. Don't ever, you're focusing your intent, but they're opening a door and you don't know who's going to walk through if you're not focusing your intent on your grandma or whatever.
Yeah, and again, it's not. It's just a board. It just simplifies. It's almost like everything's already laid out there for you, and all you have to do is put your energy on one thing. When I was a kid, and here's the story. When I was a kid, there was this girl whose aunt was apparently she was a witch of some kind. She ended up passing away, and she left like a bunch of stuff behind, like books and all kinds of different stuff on witchcraft. So she was flipping through these books, and then she found something in there. And these books are super old, by the way. These are, I don't know, 1800, type of books. And a lot of it, because a lot of people were illiterate, you know, in around those times, especially in El Salvador, people were illiterate. So a lot of the stuff was drawn. Like this is how, So she gets a lot of her friends together, a lot of these girls, and it said to take something to write with. So they grabbed a pencil and they put the pencil, or was it a pen? Doesn't matter. Anyway, so they put the pencil. They each take their hand, right? And one puts the hand this way. The other girl comes, palm facing down, puts it this way. The other girl,
Stacking.
the other girl comes and then puts her hand this way and then this way, and then they take a big either piece of paper or something to write on, and then they're sitting there, and then they're sitting there like that, and you don't put pressure. It's barely on whatever you're writing on. So then they begin, and they're sitting there asking questions. All of a sudden, their hands are just moving. Their hands are moving around. They're doing all kinds of different stuff. And eventually, they start writing down. And this is what I tell people all the time. People are like, well, they probably planned this. They probably blah, blah, blah. Take your hand and do this, and then write, barely touch the paper, write a letter. Do any letter you want. N. By the way, you have other people with you. Which direction are you going to write? If I tell anybody, write an N, everybody's going to
Right,
be
everybody's in a different direction. Right.
right. So these girls are sitting and they're doing this, and they're writing full blown, like, you know, phrases, random phrases as they're asking questions. Finally, one of the girls just like lays down and she's beginning to like convulse. And she convulsed for a minute, and then people began to they began to kind of get freaked out, and then one of the teachers noticed what they were doing, grabbed the paper, started ripping it up, and then told the girls to stop it, and then you have to go pray, you have to go do whatever you had to be doing. So that happened. So these girls were asking questions, stupid things like, is it gonna rain tomorrow? Is it gonna do this? Is it gonna do that? And then there was questions that were answered like, sí, tal vez, maybe, and just things like that. So one of the girls said, "Are we gonna have a dangerous something like is it gonna be danger basically soon, coming soon?" And it's kind of a vague question because it's El Salvador. War can break out any
I
minute.
was gonna say,
But then, literally a week later, we had a pretty big hurricane that hit, and that area where they were at flooded that whole area. It was so bad that cars were kind of like taken from the amount of flooding. And this girl swears that that's what she asked, if there going to be any danger coming in, and she, to this day, grown woman, like people like, oh, did you hear about Marta? She blah blah blah, blah. And she'll say that like, yeah, well, I asked, are we in danger? Is it going to be danger? And it said yes, very clearly. You wrote yes, and you could look at this paper. It had said like, it wrote C. And these girls are not sitting there doing this. These girls are just swinging their hands around as they're doing this, and then they would write messages, and then we had a big flood. So, anyways, what the point I'm trying to make here is it doesn't matter if it's Hasbro's, Ouija board. It's any tool that you put energy into, and like I said, that could have saved the. Imagine if people got together and they asked these girls that question. They could have been better prepared. They could have prepared for something. A lot of people were caught off
Yeah.
guard. It was early in the morning when the hurricane hit. People drowned. People got severely injured. People lost everything. So could you imagine if people got together and then they were like, "Oh, we should kind of," they would have prepared, you know? So
Yeah, but that stuff is all viewed as anything mysticism, anything spiritual is viewed with, oh, it's demonic. It's terror, it's ooh, it's taboo. And okay, where is it coming from though? If it's, if you're asking your ancestors, if you're asking relatives who have passed, who, all these types of questions, and somehow there's some kind of divine knowledge when you pass, then why not tap into that? I mean, I don't know if there's divine knowledge or not, but that's got to come from somewhere, right?
yeah, but now the question that I'm going to ask you is, let's say that somebody is now interested in, like, oh, you know what? I might try the Ouija board tonight. It is Halloween, everything's spooky. You know,
Yeah.
what is the safest method to do this? Because again, it is just a tool, but people are stupid.
Right. Oh, always, 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 always begin and end with, hey, grandma, call her name. I would like to speak with you. Just focus your intent and your energy on the person you want to speak to, because it's somebody somebody who loved you, somebody who cares for you, somebody who would want your best interest at heart. Never invite, like, who wants to talk to me? Is there anybody out there? No, 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 no. Because because once you start that communication, you don't know who's going to start communicating back. Where if you're talking to, let's say, if I'm talking to Grandma Dorothy, and Grandma Dorothy, I can then ask her a question only Grandma Dorothy would know.
Grandma Dorothy sounds like she was a party.
No, she was not. But I can ask a question that only she would know, and that would be my confirmation, right? That would be my confirmation. I'm speaking directly to her. I know things about her that nobody living would know. I don't have anybody living in my family anymore, but if I did, nobody else would know these things because I haven't talked about them. So I could ask this question and I'd phrase it in a yes or no, because that's easy for somebody to answer with the planchette, yes or no. They point, right? And I could ask this question, and then if the answer is wrong, you could ask a series of questions to make sure that's who you're speaking with.
Yeah.
If the answer is wrong, and all these answers are wrong, and you're not speaking to who you say you want to speak to, you end communication.
How do you
You back out.
how do
You
you end the?
stop.
You just stop.
You just say, thank you, I'm leaving. Thank you. Nope, not talking to you any further. I do that, so I use dowsing rods. I do use the spirit board. I call it spirit board. I use it a lot. But my preferred communication was with dowsing rods. And when a spirit is contacting me and we're working and we're really talking, if somebody walks in and takes control of those rods, the whole feel of the rods change. I know immediately it's no longer dead Uncle Fred, it's somebody else. And I'm like, nope, I'm not talking to you. You need to leave.
Huh.
I stop.
So, wow. So, what are some like, besides the question? Because sometimes they say, um, it's a demonic entity when it's violently moving back and forth. It's is that a real
Not
thing?
necessarily. No, not necessarily. Number one, do you think I personally don't think that a demonic entity, although I've seen dark entities and non-human entities come through this way, not demonic. Um, but the violent swinging could be something as simple as, you're not paying attention to me. I want to talk to you now. Maybe you're trying to talk to grandma, and grandpa's sitting here going, damn it. I've been waiting for this chance for 10 years. Talk to me. It could be as simple as, this is not the person who you think you're talking to. It may be grandpa. And that violent swinging also could be that you're not listening to what I'm trying to say, or they're having a hard time communicating this way.
You know what
Or
that
it could be a thousand things.
You know what that reminds me of? It's almost like I don't know, for the people that have like a grandparent. Oh, my grandparents are dead, by the way. But like a grandparent who, when he's trying to explain something to you, and he's like, "You do this way," and then you're like, "You do it this way." No, it's eventually he's like, "Give me that piece of paper. This is how you
Yeah,
do it, right here." And then he gets
exactly,
frustrated, and they're like, "Oh,
exactly.
grandpa's at it again." He's like, "You're not listening." And I wonder if it'd be the same thing, almost like with with the.
Well, so it's kind of interesting when I'm doing dowsing rods and I'm talking some spirits that I'm talking with. And like I said, the Ouija board is a form of dowsing. That's all it is. You're just using one planchette instead of two dowsing rods,
I broke my
right?
pencil.
But see how you are. Um, there are some entities when they come to me, they're just so weak that all they can barely do is move that rod back and forth. They're just not, and it takes them a while to get their footing and then they start really moving it. Or maybe they're just so weak that they can't manifest well enough to work the dowsing rod. There's some spirit energy that comes near me and the communication is so strong, they've ripped them right out of my hands.
Whoa.
I mean, just pull them right out of my hands and they'd go flying because they're so strong. That's going to be the same thing with the Ouija board.
It's just how much of that is also somebody being like too tense, somebody's being nervous, scared as they're playing this board. You know what I mean? Like how much of it is
Yeah. So, have you ever used this board in
no,
any form?
no. I've always stayed away from
Okay.
that stuff.
So I've used it a lot. So I grew up using it with my mom because it was an easy way for her to teach me how to douse. Remember, she was in this for
Yeah,
you know,
that
a
that's
long
that
time before I was born.
that's
So,
that's the question I
um,
was gonna ask you. Is like, what does old Dottie say about this?
yeah. Well, there were times where we could take our hands off the planchette and we'd watch it move. Like it would start be swinging, yes, and we just both lift our hands. She'd just say, "Lift your hand, lift," and it would keep moving. I mean, because the energy is so strong with who we were communicating with. She was using it as a tool to teach me how to communicate, but she didn't need it. She didn't need anything.
Yeah,
She just, but it was an easy way for someone who was 7 years old, and I don't ever suggest anybody that young do this.
yeah, a bunch of
But
crazy
she
people.
knew that I was going to go on investigations and I was going to be in this line of work. And she started me very, very, very young because I already had some skills. So she's like, so it was easy representation for me. But the planchette could move on its very own. So, and there was something that my friend and I did draw into the house because we were fucking around one night. Pardon my French. We were, sorry, we
No, no,
were
you're
messing
fine.
around with it one night, and uh, we were not following the rules and the protocols that my mom kept driving into our brain, and we invited, and it took my mom a few years to get that out of the house.
Whoa.
Lesson learned, and it was really dark. It was really, really dark. So, lesson learned, and it followed, it was bad. So, we both learned our lesson and we never did it again. And that's why I keep warning people. It's because I've done it. I know how easy it is to do. And if it wasn't for my mom, I don't know what I would have done because it wasn't back then. You could like call somebody and there was no internet. You didn't know how to make contact with people to help you.
Yeah. Man, and that
So,
should be yeah, and the whole thing with you being 7 years old and being trained. I don't think that that's something negative because again, you were being trained by somebody that knew what they were doing. You know that.
think about it this way: we teach hunter safety to children in the
Yeah,
state, right? Because they're going to go out and they're going to go with their fathers and their grandfathers and their uncles and their cousins and go hunt elk. So we teach fish and game teaches hunter safety. Use the tools. Be taught how to use the tools you're going to use.
yeah, man. So and how, man, because you've experienced the horror stories of people calling you up and they're saying we did this and then we don't. How many
They
people?
never admit to it. They never admit to it at first. But I can tell within 5 minutes. I'm like, okay. I let them keep going, and then I
Yeah.
finally say, okay, now come clean and tell me what you've done.
So as you're playing, see, I've never played with a talking board, a spirit board, Ouija, any of these type of things, and I don't think I ever will. No, I'm not gonna do it. You're not gonna convince me to do it.
But you
Anyways,
bought a haunted doll. I'm
oh
just saying.
geez, okay, let's stay on topic here. Um, so
Oh, right.
so so man, so there's no real way to actually tell what you're communicating with. It's how you open the door. So who are you open the door to? That's the only way to
Yeah.
be safe. Um, is there, see, this may sound like a stupid question now because nowadays we have Ouija boards that are on a keychain, and you can carry the Ouija board everywhere you go. I was going to say, is there a spirit board starter set or,
Almost everybody I've ever met has gone to Walmart and bought a Ouija board. It's not a big deal. I mean, they all buy it. I don't think, honestly, I would think that the if you really want to be safe, you go to a really good medium and use the medium to make the contact for you. That way you're removed from the situation. You're letting the medium take the risk, right? It's not even a risk for them because it's what they do. I work with three incredible mediums, and it's what they do all day long. They have customers all day long, and they're the intermediary. And it's not like the old fashioned, like you're sitting around doing a seance and the table moves. They're telling you stuff that they can't possibly know because they don't have your information. A lot of times they don't have anything but your first name and your phone number. You walk in the door and that's it. They just go, they start reading, and there's no way they could have this information, right? They can tell you things that you're like, there's no way you could know that. And they do this every single day. So if you really want to be safe, go to a medium. That way you're not doing anything. You're not drawing. You're not inviting the wrong person or thing into the door. You're going and you're trying to find out this information. But if you're going to do this, because most people will, then it's, you know, Grandma, Dorothy, I want to talk to you. And then you ask a series of questions that only Grandma would know. You have to
yeah,
phrase them kind of easily, though, like a yes or no. Like, trick it. Like, is your middle name Ethel? I don't know. You know what I mean? If it's not, then it should go no. If
like,
it does go yes, then you know you don't have Dorothy there.
yeah, geez, that's so simple. Like, and again, I mean, it's like you said, if you're really interested into this kind of stuff, I mean, now there's resources where you can find mediums, you can find all kinds of different things because like you said, like it's like rewiring a house. You're not gonna do it yourself. If you don't know what you're doing, get an electrician. Watch him get a, you know,
Exactly. And so the mediums that I work with in my group, and I've known them for a long time, and they work with people, they can do a reading internationally. That they don't have to be. Should I give you an example?
yes, that's my
Okay.
face.
Yeah, well, so this wasn't international, but I can tell you that this is for sure and for real. So a friend of mine, I was having dinner with her in Phoenix. I'd flown to Phoenix for work, and then we were down there. She lived down there for a time. We met, and we were having dinner, and I could tell she was upset. So I said, well, "Can you tell me what's happening?" And she told me that her best friend at home, and I won't say the location, but she said her dad is missing. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, because not it's not very often in our lives that somebody goes missing, like missing,
Yeah,
missing. And she said, yeah, he's been gone for a couple of weeks, and this is what happened. And she told me the story. And before she could finish, I said, I need to call my friend at home. She might be able to guide you on some information. And so I called this particular medium that I work with all the time. She told me, now this is a person who lives here in town.
yeah,
So she's never been to this town because I know the town because it's where we kind of grew up. So it's like she's never been there. She doesn't know this family from Adam. She didn't know the circumstances. I didn't say anything other than my friend's dad is missing. And she went quiet for a second and she said he was wearing this. She gave me the description of the clothes he had on. he was walking with a cane. Um, she goes, I'm pretty sure he had Alzheimer's or dementia, and I'm seeing two bodies of water. There's no way she could know this, but from where he went, he could see a lake and a pond. There was a lake down below in the elevation, like, 10 miles away, but you could see it clearly from the ridge line he was at. And there was a pond.
Whoa.
And she said, walk this way, go this way, go this way, go down this trail. And the thing is, she goes, search and rescue can't find him because he is deceased. He fell backwards down this trail and he's wedged under like a boulder. They couldn't find him. It's been 2 weeks. They couldn't find him. So my friend gets this information, relays it back to the family. That's where they found him.
All right.
So
Now,
these are what these mean. These are how people, they are in tune to things that you and I will never know. And they get information from places we never know. So if you are afraid of working with any kind of board or pendulum or dowsing rods, you contact these type of people, and they're the ones that give you the readings, and they're the ones that make the contact for you, and they know what's safe.
I have a story for you now. Okay. Another. This was before I was actually born. So okay. So my mother. Okay, I'm just gonna start the story. Okay, so my mother and my father are both. This is in California. They're both sleeping in my uncle's living room because they have to get on their feet. You know. So they're sleeping in the living room. All of a sudden, my dad sits up and he wakes my mother up, and my mom's like, "What?" And then he says, "Your brother's dead." And my mom's like, "What?" And then he says, "I just saw a blinker explode." So then mom's like, "All right." So then 5 minutes later, they get a phone call, and it was from my mom. And they're like, "Oh, it's from your mother." And then she answers the phone, and then they say, "Your youngest brother," his name was Rafael. Youngest brother Rafael, he's dead. And she said, "What?" And he says, "Yeah, he was driving his motor because he used to ride around his motorcycle, and he was always drinking." He was riding around his motorcycle. He was drunk, and he runs into the street. A semi comes and hits his motorcycle.
Oh,
So the blinker
God.
that that my dad saw explode apparently was the blinker on the motorcycle getting hit from that side by the semi. And then my dad was very no nonsense. He's like, "Okay, sit down. I have something to tell you." He's just like, "Hey, your brother's dead." And and
Yikes.
and yeah, and then that's how my father's always been. I mean, even when we were walking, my dad's like, "All right, we need to duck and get out of here." And we're like, "What?" He says, "I just saw a gunshot hit that tree." And then we're like, "What the hell are you talking about?" All of a sudden, some guy's drunk, opens fire in a crowd in El Salvador and hits that damn tree that my dad pointed at. And good thing we were half a block away. So it's just things like that. My dad he's still alive. He's an odd fella. And so, yeah, that's
Well, there are associated dangers with using any of these tools, but so you need to be trained, or you need to contact, really, really, really contact only the people that you know who loved you, or don't even mess with them and go to a medium to provide the information that you're seeking. Because most of us are using these things to seek information. I don't contact my own relatives. I just don't. Because I'm they're constantly feeding me information, and I know, so I don't need a board to contact them. Like,
yeah,
because I'm hearing them all the time. I'm hearing them giving me guidance, and I'm hearing my dad constantly telling me, "You need to laugh more. You need to do this. You need to." He's constantly
you
just trying to be my
you
guiding
you need
voice.
you need
So,
to laugh more. You need to get back on a show with Decon. Give us.
well, yeah, coming from the guy who was Pink Panther cartoonist, right? He was always laughing. He goes, "You're too serious. Where'd you get that from?" I don't know, Dad.
Oh,
So
jeez.
anyway,
So
anyway.
and then this is the tip that I give people. Basically, like you play the runes, you read the runes like every morning. Anyways, I mean, and if you've never had an experience or never had experience anything like this or have no experience, and you're curious, like why not go to a medium? they could give you tips. I mean, they can do all kinds of things for you.
It's really fascinating on what they can tell you. And so the three mediums that I work with who work on my team, they all three read completely differently.
That's what I was
Like
gonna.
you could go to all three and get a different, like one is really relationship and family oriented. The other one is really in tune with your medical history and showing you. It was kind of fascinating. She didn't know I had something going on because I hadn't told anybody. And she called me and it was like, you need to do this, this, and this because this is happening. And I went, oh, shit. And
Yeah,
you
and
know what I mean? So,
yeah.
and then the other one is she's really in tune to your like psyche and your energy. And they all three read completely differently. So just going to one medium, you may not be getting all of the information that you're seeking. Try other people.
Also, read reviews because there's a lot of people out there that are frauds. What?
Yes.
Yeah, go into so you got to do your research. Walk in there and be like, "Excuse me, can I get a reading?" And they're like, "Yeah, you're gay." And I'm like, "No, I'm not." You just don't.
So most mediums, so these gals, and all three women, they don't charge a Would you stop cracking yourself up? I swear to God, Devon. They don't have like a set fee. They're donation. So if you feel there's value in the reading, then you pay them based on the value you think the information. So I like that because they're not this is what they do for a living and but still it's if you feel like the information was off the mark, you walk out the door and have a nice day, but I've never seen that happen. You
Yeah,
know? They
yeah, that's so. You know what? And man, so if somebody were to want to get in contact, I don't know if you recommend. Like I think that
Yeah.
if somebody would like a reading from one of your associates, how do you pronounce that? Sorry, my accent comes out every once in a while. I try to hide it. um, so if somebody would want to get in contact, like, is there a way to do it? Is it just online? Is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, well, they can get a hold of me through the Pocatello Paranormal Research. The direct messages goes right to me. My phone number is also on that Facebook site. So, by the way, I turn off my phone at 8 p.m. So, just so y'all know that.
Damn it!
And it doesn't start up again until 7. I know. There's a few
I was
people I
gonna
allow
prank
to
call
read
you.
through. Because I'm in this line of work, it has to have
Yeah.
a timeout. Um, but yeah, if you get a hold of me through the paranormal Facebook page, we have a website, pocatelloparanormalresearch.com. The phone, you can text me. Then yeah, if depending, I will give you the information of all three ladies, and then you can chat them up and see who fits your needs. You'll get a feel instantly when you talk to a medium whether or not that medium is on the up and up, whether or not you think that they're going to tap into information for you. You'll know. I mean, use your gut. People don't use
Yeah.
your gut enough.
Yeah.
Use your gut.
Jeez, what is wrong with you people? Jeez. But that
Our
man.
listeners wouldn't be like that. Our listeners
No.
would use their gut, but a lot of
Yeah.
people
Oh
don't.
yeah. Yeah. A lot of idiots. Use your gut. But anyways, this was
So
a. We're gonna. Yeah. I'm gonna get more hate messages. I'm gonna get threats pretty soon. Anyways,
it's Decon, all right? Not me. He's
not
Decon.
not the show. It's me. I'm stupid. Uh, so all right. So that information, I'm actually gonna put links in the description if you guys are interested in something like that. I mean, even just dumb questions. I mean, there's no people say there's no such thing as stupid questions. Yes, there is. But even if you guys want to do something like that, go ahead and ask away. I mean, this such a fun episode. I can go for another hour, but let's not do that. So the verdict is that what I want to say? The verdict. So okay, so the Ouija board. What is your opinion on it? Is it dangerous? Is it not dangerous? Is it what you make it? Is it how you
It's how you use it.
use it? That's what it is, guys. And like I said, if you don't know what you're doing, don't do it. Don't use it.
Don't do it.
Yeah, you don't sit there and say, well, my car is beginning to kind of have bad brakes. I'm gonna get underneath it. I'm gonna change the brakes. Have you ever done it before? No. Why would you do it with this? It,
Yeah. It's you have to learn how to use every tool that you have, so don't be stupid. Don't be
Yeah,
stupid.
stupid. Jeez.
Don't be stupid.
Don't be stupid. Anyways, guys, this was a great episode. That's a great way to end it. Just be like, stupid, the end, shut it off. Um, great way to end it. I was one of your hosts, Decon, here with a very logical, very mystical, very wise.
SOS, I swear to God, Deacon.
And, um, yeah. So, so remember, guys, to always look both ways, especially if you find yourselves on Nightmare Road. I haven't been
Whew.
drinking, I swear.